The Shadow over the Capital, The Legend of the Monkey Man. The summer of 2001 in Delhi was not merely hot, it was oppressive. A relentless heatwave had settled over the city, and the power grid, struggling under the demand, frequently succumbed to long blackouts. It was in this sweltering, pitch-black environment that one of the most bizarre instances of mass hysteria in modern history took root. This is the story of the Monkey Man, a phenomenon that blurred the lines between urban legend, collective trauma, and a very real, tangible fear that paralyzed a metropolis of millions. In early May 2001, reports began trickling in from the peripheral, lower-income neighborhoods of East Delhi, such as Ghaziabad and Noida. The stories were remarkably consistent. A strange creature was leaping from rooftop to rooftop, attacking people in the dead of night. The descriptions, however, were anything but consistent. Some victims described a creature standing about 4 feet tall with thick black hair. Others swore it wore a metal helmet or a chest plate with glowing red buttons. Some claimed it had metal claws or glowing green eyes. It wasn't a monkey, and it wasn't a man, one victim told local news. It jumped further than any human could, and when I tried to grab it, it felt like cold machinery. As the days passed, the frequency of reports skyrocketed. The Delhi police, initially dismissive of what they called rumor-mongering, were forced to take action when the casualties turned from minor scratches to genuine tragedies. The physical toll, over 350 sightings were reported in less than a month. Dozens of people were treated at local hospitals for bite marks and deep scratches. The tragedies of terror. The Monkey Man didn't just hurt people with claws, he hurt them with fear. In several instances, the mere shout of "Bandaraya, the monkey has come," caused stampedes. One pregnant woman fell down a flight of stairs in a panic, and a man jumped from his roof in a desperate attempt to escape a shadow he believed was the creature. Both lost their lives. The atmosphere in Delhi became medieval. Residents formed defense committees, patrolling streets with lathis, bamboo sticks, and torches. Anyone who looked suspicious or was simply a stranger in a neighborhood was at risk of being lynched by mobs fueled by sleep deprivation and paranoia. The Delhi police eventually formed a special task force. They offered a reward of 50,000 Indian rupees, a significant sum at the time, for information leading to the capture of the creature. Medical experts and psychologists were brought in to examine the victims. Their findings offered a more grounded, albeit less sensational, explanation. Experts concluded that the Monkey Man was a classic case of mass hysteria. In a high-stress environment, extreme heat, power cuts, lack of sleep, a single reported incident can trigger a chain reaction where the brain interprets mundane sights, a stray cat, a shadow, or a moving branch, as the perceived threat. Forensic experts noted that many of the claw marks were superficial and inconsistent with a wild animal attack. Some were believed to be self-inflicted, subconsciously or otherwise, while others were likely caused by common household accidents or stray animals, recontextualized by the victim's fear. Some theorists suggested that the glowing eyes or chest buttons were actually the LED lights of remote controls or small electronics, which were becoming more common in households and looked eerie in the pitch darkness of a power outage. Just as quickly as he had arrived, the Monkey Man vanished. By June 2001, the sightings dwindled to zero. The monsoon rains arrived, cooling the city and the collective temperament of its citizens. The police files remained open for a time, but with no physical evidence, No hair samples, no clear photographs, and no biological droppings. The case was effectively mothballed. To this day, if you ask a resident of East Delhi who lived through that summer, they won't tell you it was mass hysteria. They will show you a scar or point to a rooftop where it was seen. The Monkey Man of Delhi remains a fascinating case study in how technology and folklore collide. In an era before smartphones and social media, the legend spread through word of mouth and sensationalist 24-hour news cycles, proving that the oldest human emotion, fear of the dark, can still bring a modern capital city to its knees. Was it a prankster in a suit? A secret military experiment? A supernatural entity? Or simply a collective hallucination born of a feverish Delhi summer? The truth likely died in the shadows of the 2001 power cuts. Before I tell you this story, I need you to understand one thing. In India, there are spirits that Western demonology has never documented, never named, never warned you about. Nilawanti is one of them. She has been known for centuries across the villages of Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. She does not haunt houses. She does not follow you home. She waits. Near water. Near old wells. Near rivers that have swallowed the forgotten dead. And she's always blue, voiceover tip, last line, and she's always blue, say it barely above a whisper. In ancient Indian texts, Nilawanti is described as a woman who was once human. A beautiful woman who was betrayed, abandoned by a man she loved, left to drown in a village well on the night before her wedding. She did not pass on. Instead, she became something in between. Not fully a ghost. Not fully a demon. The Sanskrit texts call this state anaratma, a soul trapped between worlds, unable to leave, unable to rest. Over centuries, her grief turned into something darker. Villagers say she appears on moonless nights, standing near wells or riverbanks. Her skin has turned a deep, dark blue, the color of water deprived of sunlight. Her hair floats as if she is still submerged. Her eyes are completely white. She never screams. She never chases. She simply looks at you. And if she looks at you long enough, you begin to forget who you are. A farmer from a small village in Madhya Pradesh, central India. This was 1987. Before mobile phones. Before the internet. Before anyone outside his village would ever hear his name. Devraj was 34 years old when it happened. A practical man. He had never believed in spirits, despite growing up in a village where the elders spoke of them constantly. He used to laugh at them. He used to say, "Show me a ghost and I will shake its hand." He stopped saying that after the monsoon of 1987. That summer, the rains came late. The crops were dying. The village well, the only water source for 300 people, had dropped dangerously low. Devraj, being any of the stronger men in the village, volunteered to go down into the well at night to clear the debris that was blocking the water flow at the bottom. The elders told him not to go after dark. He went anyway. He tied a rope around his waist, lowered himself down, and spent about 40 minutes working at the bottom of the well. It was dark. It was cold. The walls were covered in moss and the smell of stagnant water was overwhelming. But he cleared the debris. He felt the water begin to flow again beneath his feet. He was about to call up to his brother to pull him out when he noticed something. On the wall of the well, about 2 feet above the waterline, there were scratch marks. Long, deep scratches in a stone. The kind you make when you are trying to climb out of something and failing. He held his lantern closer. The scratches were not old. They were fresh. And they were made from the inside. Devraj shouted for his brother to pull him up. Immediately, his brother called back asking what was wrong. Devraj did not answer. He just grabbed the rope with both hands and started climbing. He was halfway up when the lantern went out. Complete darkness. 40 feet underground. The rope in his hands. The sound of water below him. And then a second sound. Breathing. Not his own. Something directly below him in the water was breathing. Slowly. Steadily. Like something that had been waiting a very long time and finally had company. Devraj climbed. He has never described what he felt in those final seconds before he reached the top. He has only ever said one thing about it. I felt her looking at me. Even in the dark. I could feel her eyes. His brother pulled him out. Devraj collapsed on the ground and did not speak for 3 days. When Devraj finally spoke again, he told his wife that he had seen something at the bottom of the well as the lantern went out. Just for a fraction of a second before darkness swallowed everything. A face. Looking up at him from the water. Blue-skinned. White eyes. Hair spreading outward in the water like something still floating. Smiling. The village elder, a woman of nearly 80 years, was not surprised. She told Devraj's family that the well had been cursed for over 100 years. That long ago, a woman had been drowned there by her own family for refusing an arranged marriage. Her body was never recovered. The well was sealed for decades before the village's need for water forced them to reopen it. The elder said that Nilawandi does not harm those who enter her space out of necessity. She only watches. She only reminds you that she is there. But she said something else that Devraj never forgot. The one she smiles at, she has already chosen. She is simply deciding when. Devraj moved his family out of the village within a month. He never returned. Nilawandi is not unique to one village. Across Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and parts of Gujarat, there are dozens of accounts. Different wells. Different victims. The same blue woman. The same white eyes. The same smile. She has never been documented by Western paranormal researchers. She does not appear in any English language demonology text. She exists only in the oral traditions of rural India, passed down in whispers, from elder to child, generation after generation. Until now. If you are watching this near water, don't look down. Western audiences know vampires. Dracula. The undead. A corpse that rises, drinks blood, fears garlic and crosses in sunlight. The Vedali is older than Dracula by 2,000 years. And it is nothing like him. The Vedali, described in Hindu texts dating back to the 11th century, most famously in the Baital Pachizi, a collection of 25 tales told by a Vedali to a king, is a spirit that inhabits corpses. Not its own corpse. Any corpse. It enters a dead body the way water enters a vessel, filling the available shape, animating it, using it until the body deteriorates too far to be useful. Then it finds another. It does not drink blood. It does not fear sunlight. It cannot be killed with a stake through the heart because it is not alive to begin with. It is a consciousness without a body of its own, ancient and intelligent and deeply, deliberately patient. What makes the Vedali far more terrifying than any Western vampire is this: it thinks. It speaks. It knows things. The ancient texts describe it as possessing wisdom that exceeds any living human, accumulated across centuries of inhabiting one body after another, observing one life after another from the inside. And unlike a vampire, it cannot be destroyed. It can only be displaced. It will simply find the next available vessel and continue. It has been continuing for a very long time. These are 3 accounts of people who encountered it. In 3 different centuries. In 3 different parts of India. None of them were the same afterward. Kamla was awake when she heard the door. She had not slept properly in 3 days. Grief does that, keeps you suspended between exhaustion and consciousness, never fully in either. She heard the handle turn. She heard the familiar creak of the 3rd floorboard inside the entrance, the one that Ramu had been meaning to fix for 11 years and never did. She thought she was dreaming. She was not. He stood in the doorway of the bedroom. Her husband. Ramu. The man she had loved for 22 years, whose hands she had held as he died of a fever in this same bed 8 days ago, whose body she had seen lowered into the cremation ground with her own eyes 3 days ago. He was standing in the doorway. Looking at her. And he said her name. Exactly the way he always said it. The particular inflection. The slight pause before the second syllable. 22 years of hearing your name said by one person, you know it. You know it the way you know your own heartbeat. It was his voice. His face. His hands. His posture. His name for her. But she knew, immediately, completely, with a certainty that bypassed every reasonable objection her mind tried to raise, that whatever was standing in her doorway was not her husband. Studio microphone voiceover tip, she was not. 2 words. Stop completely. 3 seconds silence. Then continue. The contrast between dream and reality is the entire hook. This account comes from a village called Bhimnagar in the Chhattisgarh region of central India. The year was 1962. The account was first documented by a local physician, Dr. Suresh Pandey, who treated Kamla in the weeks following the incident, and who wrote up the case in a private medical journal that his grandson shared with researchers in 2008. Ramu Sahu had been a gravedigger. A profession that, in rural India, placed a person in a specific relationship with the boundary between the living and the dead, a boundary that the traditions of that region treated with elaborate and very specific respect. You do not linger at the cremation ground after sunset. You do not speak the names of the recent dead after dark. You do not, under any circumstances, go to the cremation ground alone. Ramu had broken this last rule the week before his death. He had gone alone after sunset to complete a burial that the day's rainfall had interrupted. He had been alone at that cremation ground for approximately 2 hours in the dark. He came home that night looking different. Not sick, not yet. Just different. Quieter. His eyes resting on things slightly longer than normal. His responses to Kamla's conversation a half-second slower than she expected. As if something that looked like Ramu was consulting an internal guide on how Ramu would respond, and the guide was very good but not quite perfect. She noticed but said nothing. She told herself it was the cold. The dark. The work. For days later he was dead. A fever that came on suddenly and burned through him in 72 hours. The doctor called it natural. The elders of the village called it something else. They used a word that the doctor's medical training had no category for, a word that translated roughly as taken toll, meaning something had used what it needed and discarded what remained. They buried him. 3 days later, he came home. Kamla did not scream. Did not run. She has said this many times in the accounts recorded by her daughter, who wrote down her mother's story in 1998 before Kamla's death. She did not scream because, she said, screaming felt wrong. Screaming was for things that surprised you. This did not surprise her. Some part of her, the part that had watched her husband come home from the cremation ground 4 weeks earlier looking like a man consulting an internal guide, had been waiting for this. She looked at the thing in her doorway and said, "You are not Ramu." It looked at her for a long moment. Then it said, in Ramu's voice, I am everything Ramu was. His memories. His knowledge of you. His love for you. I know what you said to each other on your wedding night. I know the name of the child you lost before your daughter was born. I know every secret he ever kept and every one he shared. Is that not enough to be him? Kamla said, no. The thing paused. Then it sat down in Ramu's chair, the specific chair he always sat in, the one by the window, and it said, then I will wait until it is. It came back the second night. And the third. Each night it knew more. Each night the performance of being Ramu was more precise, more detailed, more suffocatingly accurate. The things it said, the memories it accessed, the gestures it replicated, these were not guesses. They were retrievals. It was going through Ramu's memories the way you go through a dead person's belongings, picking up each one, turning it over, learning its weight. Room, woke and came to the doorway and saw her father sitting in his chair. She took one step toward him. Kamla stepped between them. Put her hand flat on her daughter's chest. Did not look away from the thing in the chair. Said to her daughter, very quietly, go back to your room. Lock the door. Do not open it until morning. Her daughter went. She locked the door. She heard her mother talking for the rest of the night. She could not make out the words. In the morning, the thing was gone. It did not return. Dr. Pandey, who treated Kamla for exhaustion and what he clinically described as acute psychological distress in the weeks that followed, noted in his private journal that she refused to discuss what had happened on the third night. Not from trauma, she was not traumatized in the way he expected. She was calm. She was simply decided. As if she had negotiated something and the negotiation was complete and she had no intention of revisiting the terms. She lived for 36 more years after that night. Raised her daughter. Grew old in the same house. Never moved. Never showed any fear of the dark or of the cremation ground or of the name of her husband spoken aloud. Before she died, she told her daughter one thing about the third night. I told it that it could have the house. The memories. Everything Ramu left behind. I told it I would not take those things with me when I left. I would leave them here for it to keep. And in exchange it would find another vessel. It would not use my daughter. It agreed. Her daughter asked, was it really Ramu, at the end? Did any part of him remain? Kamla thought for a long time. At the very end of the third night, just before dawn, it said something to me. Something that only Ramu could have known. Something that nobody else in the world knew. And it said it in a voice that was not performing. It was just his voice. Just for one moment. I think he was still in there. Very far down. Very small. Like a lamp in a very large dark room. I think he was saying goodbye.